Cancel.
Schweezy.
Are religious people just less intelligent? Up atheists with academic parents, it allows me to view the topic from an outside perspective, so it just seems unintelligent and, for a lack of a better word, moronic to believe in mythology from before the Middle Ages and take it as truth, while most of it, Bible, Quran, etc., is clearly fairy tales of the time with some historical grounding to make it believable and no real evidence other than word of mouth in those same scripts. So to an outsider like me, I literally cannot grasp the situation. I do know that things such as indoctrination from a young age can be an enormous obstacle for anyone. So do the people and the environment of an individual around them. Still, it seems strange to me that an individual can think to themselves and come to the conclusion that yes, this book is the truth and I won't question it without a single thought put into how that script came to be or how the respective religion has reinterpreted the text hundreds of times over the years, and it now barely resemblance the original text, not to mention the numerous additions and redactions the different church mosque governments did to the original text just so they'd fit their narrative at the time. Okay, so I do think this is a very interesting question. Obviously everyone take a drink because I grew up in church, so I know how this works. One thing about religions, and this is more of a study on how Jehovah's Witnesses work. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses, from what I know, just from binging some YouTube creators who are who were former Jehovah's Witnesses, what they would say is that one thing Jehovah's Witnesses try to do is they don't want people who are Jehovah's Witnesses to be like doctors or anything, or philosophers, like that's a job, or like dentists and shit, like anything that requires like a lot of like degrees and stuff like that. They don't like that. They want people to be like window washers and janitors and stuff like that. That's like, those are jobs. One thing is it's kind of indoctrination because if someone doesn't have the intelligence necessarily to, have critical thinking skills, never, nice thing about college is it makes you have to like think about things. Like you can't just go to college, just kind of half-ass your way through like at least classes that you would typically major in and get your way, because at some point you're going to have a senior project and like you can't just be dumb about it. Like you can't just like blaze your way through and shit like that. So you have to literally keep going from there and stuff like that. So a lot of these people are less intelligent. A lot of these people who typically stick with these, a lot of them, and I'm saying a lot, there's a lot of people who are very smart and do believe in Christianity and do believe in faith and stuff like that. So I'm not counting those out, but there are a lot of people. A lot of them do vote red too. I just want to point that out. They do come from unintelligent backgrounds. Like maybe they weren't smart enough to make it into a college. I'm not saying they're not smart. Some of them are doing terrific in trade schools. But others are like, yeah, I'm not really smart. So they just get a job where they can, trying to work and stuff like that. And stuff like that. Maybe they went to college for a year and they couldn't do it. College is hard. And so like, I get it. So, people unintelligent, so they weren't able to make it in college. So not necessarily, just because you're not super smart doesn't mean you shouldn't be respected. But at the same time, these people are the ones that are being indoctrinated because, they've never really left a specific bubble for anything. I wouldn't call them bad people or morons or shit like that, but like stuff like that, just they never had to do a ton of critical thinking and stuff like that. That's one thing I can say to that too. Another one is obviously kids, growing up into this stuff, kind of like I did. And like a lot of kids, I knew they were homeschooled. And like, to be honest, I have one friend, his name is Gingerballs. He is the only one who I believe was homeschooled and actually got an actual education via homeschool. Like everyone else I know who was homeschooled, like, I'm like, how, like, they barely know how to read. And some of them made it into college because they, like, snuck into community college first, and then they started doing another class. I'm like, they snuck in. I'm like, how are you, like, some of these people, I'm like, you barely know how to read. I don't know how you've, like, even made it this far into the system and stuff like that. Some of them, like, their parents didn't even actually teach them actual schooling stuff. Like, how they got away with that is beyond me. I think I know some people who eventually had those credentials like tested, and they're like, you didn't get an education. How you are even able to read is beyond me. And you'd be surprised. Like, I always wondered how, like, you hear like the statistic of like people who are like illiterate, and you're like, how? And then it's like people like this. So, you know, when they get them from a young age, and so they don't make them smart, and so they can't really critically think. That's really how they fall into this. Not saying that everyone into this, you know, if you try to read anything from like C.S. Lewis or Tolkien, you know, so very, very well written stuff. There's a lot of smart people who do associate with Christianity and stuff like that. I'm not going to say it's outward, but a lot of times the people who just believe this nonsense, especially, you know, coming from the Republican Party, are not super educated people. So I would say a majority of people, you know, fall into this can be considered less intelligent. A lot of them are just in bad situations and they don't know the situation. So sometimes you just gotta help people learn. Be a good, better person. Hey, you just finished one of the many, many highlights from Cancel Schweezy. We got plenty more on the channel, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you like what you just watched, go ahead and smash that like button as well. Go subscribe for more so we can teach you how to be a better human in our world. So yeah, stay awesome.